In North Carolina, when a snowflake barely grazes the pavement, doesn't even stick, just a light tap. We shut down the whole world out here. Schools closed, parents locked down in home offices, kids just glued to screens like a herd of barn cats watching a laser pointer. But not for some of our boys in our local scout program. Oh no, not them. They took one look at the weather report and said, Mr. Rankin, can we go on an 8-mile hike in real snow at 5,000 plus feet in elevation and camp the night out in 20-degree weather? And you know me, I'm like, are you kidding me, boys? Strap your boots on, let's go. Because that right there, that desire for challenge, that spark is exactly what our rural youth development program was built for. Look, everybody keeps asking the same questions. Why don't our youth come back to rural life? Why are they struggling so much? Why the violence, all the apathy? Well, maybe, just maybe, it's because they're not getting the opportunities to build resilience anymore. You don't learn to face fear playing a video game. You don't build confidence by completing level 12 of Pixel Zombie, whatever it is. You build it by stepping into the cold, into the wilderness, into the discomfort, and then realizing you didn't just survive, but you thrived. Look, rural life is hard. Agriculture is hard, but it's not impossible, and it's not impossible for our future generations. Kids, youth just need someone to show them how, to teach them how to overcome real-world challenges again, which is why we created the Rural Youth Development Fund in the first place, to give kids these opportunities, to provide them with the resources to be able to partake in these things. You know, rural kids, they don't have the fundraising capabilities, they don't have all of these things that the kids in the cities have. They don't have it, and so they just don't go. They don't have the ability to go, to learn, to develop, to teach them outdoor skills, leadership, craftsmanship, tradition, and agriculture. And maybe, possibly, one of the biggest things that they could be learning is how to depend on themselves and their peers. You know, our kids are the future of rural America. And it's not the government's job to raise them in a public school system, it's ours. It's our responsibility, not theirs. Our fund helps make it possible, provides funding for gear, for transportation, for these opportunities. Knowing that I'm pretty passionate about rural youth, I've had some people asking me some questions lately, and that's the main reason why I wanted to do this video. I wanted to address it. There's been a lot of comments floating around, comments from groups like Mothers for Liberty and, well, Pete Hedgeseth. And a lot of these comments are criticizing the Scouts program. And look, I haven't said much about this because, let's be honest, a lot of people enjoy the headlines more than they do the accuracy of what they're stating. But I will say this, what frustrates me is that they're stirring political drama at the expense of our youth. The Scouting program, for example, is one of the only programs for a lot of these smaller rural communities. It's one of the oldest, most established programs that's been around for a century. It's one of the best outdoor educational programs still existing today, teaching young men and now women how to be prepared. And well, actually, the Venture Scouts program has always taught men and women. So I guess it's, you know, few minor changes. Do I personally agree with every change that the National Organization of Scouting America has made? Of course I don't. I have no problem telling people that. But here's a secret that nobody seems to mention when they talk about this stuff. Every single local troop and pack is different. They have their own tone, they set their own expectations, they even establish their own boundaries. Their own boundaries with leadership, their own boundaries with who they allow into the program. What's allowed depends on the adults who actually show up to volunteer and lead. And ironically, that's how real communities are supposed to work. But walking away from a program because you don't like one or two aspects of it, I mean, come on, guys. That's not leadership, it's what we call quitting. And honestly, you don't build good youth with a bunch of kids being led by adults who quit every time they get annoyed. I'm just being frank, okay? This is the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to say out loud. There are people who do not want America's youth to be prepared. They don't want them to be self-sufficient. They don't want our youth to be capable. And they're going to attack every single program out there, not just Scouting America, that builds confident, resilient, young rural youth. Think about it. The last administration cut funding to every school, every educational program that received government grants for any of those programs where a kid picked up a bow and arrow or a hunting knife or a .22 rifle. Was that about safety? No. In my opinion, it was about control and undermining preparation. And if that's not enough for you, think about it this way. It literally was an attack on the cultural beliefs of tribal programs. They teach their kids how to hunt. They teach their kids how to be self-sufficient. But under the funding cut, they weren't allowed to have their kids pick up a bow and arrow. They weren't allowed to learn their cultural beliefs, their cultural traditions, how they're supposed to eat. Does that sound familiar to you? Is it ringing any bells at all? Look, real leaders regroup. They recalibrate. They re-engage, and they manage to keep their values without surrendering their mission. If you really want to know what's fragile, it's adults who jump on the bandwagon because somebody told them they needed to be outraged. And you want to know what's dangerous? It's allowing that bandwagon to just roll off the cliff with all the opportunities for our young youth. I'm just not fragile. Sorry. And I'm certainly not the type of guy who's going to give the perpetrators, the people who want to shut these programs down, the satisfaction of watching us cannibalize our own institutions. So yeah, I mean, when those kids came to me and said, Mr. Rankin, we want to go hiking into the wilderness and camping while the rest of North Carolina is on red alert snowflake lockdown, I jumped in to lead, along with a military veteran, because we know that this is how you build strong young men. This is how you build rural leaders. This is how you protect the future of agriculture, rural life, and, believe it or not, the values we hold dear. You don't do it by running. You don't do it by quitting. You do it by showing up. And that's what our Rural Youth Development Fund is all about. Supporting kids who are willing to step into the cold and frankly discover the strength that they didn't know that they had. Let's wise up, folks. Our rural youth deserve opportunities. They don't deserve obstacles and parents arguing over their political viewpoints. In my perspective, the best way to give them those opportunities is to stop being snowflakes about snowflakes. You know, I think that there are a lot of potential programs out there for rural youth. There's FFA, which has kind of been staggering in a lot of areas. There's 4-H, again, staggering in a lot of areas. A program like Scouting America is still very strong in a lot of communities, at least within a 20-30 minute drive. There are new programs that have been popping up like Trail Masters, but again, a lot of the new stuff, in order to get the number of kids involved, they're all in cities. Just trying to put some perspective on it.
Ancient eras and natural selection have refined and tailored pristine fibers with the resilience for today's days. Evolving beyond the last ice age, bison wool is nature's most dependable activewear. Buffalo Wool Company, 100% proven by nature, 100% American-made.
Check out the Buffalo Wool Company collection at yanasatradingco.com.